Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Build Show. I'm John Peitzman, JP, master coach and creator of the Build Framework. I work with individuals and teams all over the world to help them thrive in their personal and professional lives. And as your host on this show, our aim is to help transform lives one guest at a time. And how do we do that? We do that by having amazing guests. And today is no different. We have with us Marc Washbourne. Marc Washbourne is the co-founder and CEO of ReadyTech, a global vertical SaaS powerhouse that has achieved remarkable growth. With over 25 years of leadership in business and technology, Marc is responsible for shaping ReadyTech's strategy and vision for excellence, guiding a team of more than 500 ReadyTechers to deliver mission-critical technology solutions to over 4,600 customers. Marc sits on the board of the federal government's Digital Skills Organization and was recently awarded the coveted title of Technology Entrepreneur of the Year for 2024. In his personal life outside of work, Marc is extremely active. He has completed the 100K Trailwalker event 5 times, and in 2023, he led an expedition to Mount Everest Base Camp to help raise funds for Pankind, the Pancreatic Cancer Foundation. It is my absolute privilege and pleasure to have him joining us here in our brand new Build studio in Sydney, Australia. Marc, welcome to The Build Show.
Thank you, JP. It's really awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here, and I can't wait to jump into Build and everything that you've been doing. But before we do that, I'm always interested in what guests are excited about right now. So as we sit here right now, what are you most excited about in life?
Oh, I'm going to have to say AI.
Yeah.
I have to say
Be
AI.
original, come on, man.
I know it's so unoriginal, but I just have to say AI because,
tell me why.
Look, we build technology across a whole range of sectors that helps people to be the best that they can be and to really impact people's lives in a positive way. One of those examples is we work in helping people who are out of work back into the workforce.
Right.
And what we've already seen with the application of AI to help someone understand their intrinsic skills and to summarize their experiences and match them to new job experiences is having really profound effects. So I think it's the positive uplift that I think we'll see for our customers and our products. It's just so immense. And so, yeah, I'm really buzzed about AI.
That's great. And for our audience, because many may not be as familiar with ReadyTech as others, what's kind of just the overview of what you guys do in the world and how you serve
we
many
build
around the world, those 4,600 customers we talked about?
Yeah, we build really mission-critical technology across a range of sectors. Education, for example, where I think we're helping to solve the skills crisis, which is pretty severe here in Australia. Helping job seekers get back into the workforce is one of our key platforms where we ensure people are paid right. So I think we've chosen to work in some sectors where there can be, as I said, a positive human impact, important pillars of society.
Right.
As you pointed out, we've grown a lot over the years. We have a team of over 500. Our largest customers.
You call them ReadyTechers, right? I love that.
It's actually ReadyTechers.
Okay.
ReadyTechers.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha.
And we we operate in the UK now. One of our largest customers is His Majesty's Courts. So we also operate in the justice space. Obviously, really important access to justice. So look, it's been a great journey. It's been amazing fun. I'm very proud of what we've achieved.
Right. And do you see that growth continuing and expanding with AI and the rest of it?
Absolutely. I think that we're always in pursuit of growth. We remain ambitious. We try to run the company like it's still day one,
right?
And stay humble. And we absolutely have further growth ambitions. I think AI will absolutely give us another huge leg of growth.
Right. No, that's great that you're embracing that too, because so many people, not to go down the AI tunnel, we won't, but they're really in fear of it, right? And not embracing it. And I think there's a lot to be said to, go to a lot of things with your eyes open and just kind of embracing the possibilities, not just the potential catastrophizing on the other end of it. Not that there's not risk and other things to look at, but you can shut yourself off a lot of times from growth with fear. Do you agree to that?
Absolutely. I do agree. I think we have to be very cautious. We have to treat this technology in very responsible ways. But I think overall, I'm a technology optimist.
Yes.
And there is so much potential for humans. And I think, where you can help people, particularly I think for us, the impact we can have on people who are more disadvantaged, can it help to level the playing field? That's just so exciting for society, I think. And so I'd like to think that we can turn the fear into FOMO.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love that. You've used that before. Good.
I have
Well
used
done.
that once or twice before.
That's good. Well, I'd love to jump into Build. And for those of you who need a reminder of what Build is all about, Build is an acronym. It stands for Build Relationships, Understand the Business, Implement Strategies, Lead and Inspire, and Deliver Excellence. And what I love about the Build show is that even though the framework stays the same, right, everyone brings a unique perspective, unique insights, unique inspiration, right, to touch our audience in different ways, to talk about how they operationalize, build, and have in their lives. Because all the many successful people I have on this show, they all have one way or the other kind of implemented build in their lives, right? So I'd love to get your insights on walking through build. So I guess let's just dive right in with B, which is build relationships. I mean, if you think about relationships that you maybe currently have and or that you've had in the past that have really allowed you to reach the success that you've had, what comes to mind?
Look, I think the B in build resonates the most. You know, this importance of people and building rapport. I think, you know, maybe that word is interchangeable with relationships. So I think if I was to call out one relationship, I would talk about my relationship with my co-founder. So I arrived in Australia in '99. I grew up in the UK.
Okay.
And I had a software development background, and I saw a lot of opportunity in this country, and I was only supposed to be here for a year, and 25 years later, I'm still here. Look, very fortunate to meet my co-founder. His name was Ken Shepherd. He's a generation older than me, and I think we built a very, very strong, high trust relationship. And Ken really, I think, you know, I was young. I was in my early 20s, and Ken really invested in me, and he gave me an enormous amount of space. So I ended up running the company around that time, and I was very young. And I think he let me, I guess, fail and learn by doing. I think it's the best way to learn.
Right.
But it was always there to sort of coach and provide advice. I learned an enormous amount from him about, I think, the importance of being very thoughtful about the business, time away from the business, working on, not in the business, to help it to grow and scale. So look, the relationship was deep. You know, he ended up becoming a sleeping partner. He's now moved on and retired, but we're still very close. So I think I put a lot of the own success that I've had and the success of the company down to that relationship. I think it was absolutely key for me.
Right. And authentic sounds like too, which is the heart connection. We have these heart connections for all the build attributes, and really that authenticity is so important, because with that, especially in a mentoring relationship that you just discussed, it's so important because, you know, you get knowledge and insights that is beyond anything you can read in a book, right? Or learn from a YouTube channel or something like that.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, I've taken that forward now, and whenever, you know, someone comes into our sphere at ReadyTech, I always try and start with building the relationship. You know, we've acquired a lot of companies over the last 5 years. And so the very first thing that, you know, I look to do is to go and meet with those management teams and just find a way to connect,
right,
and build that relationship and build that trust. So, you know, as we start to work together, you know, that's a platform on which, you know, we can do things and work together. You know, when we win a large customer, I'll always try to reach out to the opposite number, who's often the CEO, and try to build that relationship, you know, straight off the bat. Just never know when you're going to use that. And a lot of those customers have become friends, and, you know, we can, I think that authentic is such a great word. I think really important, you know, is not to let this sort of be transactional.
Yep.
And you know, more holistic in terms of the relationship. And so that part of build really, really resonates with me. I dig that a lot, JP.
Yeah, well, it's a foundational element, right? And it all starts with B, because without that, you can't move on to anything else. But when you do move on to you, which is understand the business. And a lot of times that's based upon the authentic relationships that you have, like in your example with your mentor, right? That you, you know, had that authentic relationship, then you really learned and understood a lot more about the business and life. But if you look at just the category kind of mutually exclusively and understand the business, right? Whether that's personal and or professional, what are some things, some understandings that really capture you that you want to share with our audience today that you think that is important for their growth and development?
Yeah, I think I would say in terms of relationships and relationships with customers, you know, I think I got an understanding pretty early that's really, really stuck with me, just how important reputation is with customers and trust with customers. And, I think in software, it's very, very powerful where customers are out there advocating for you and talking to others about their experience. I think word of mouth is so much more powerful than other types of advertising. I think it's generally considered unbiased and unfiltered.
Yes.
And so I think from that understanding, I really spent a lot of time thinking about how do we build great customer relationships? How do we delight our customers? I remember really, I read a book many years ago called The Power of Moments, which is how certain experiences can really matter and really move people in extraordinary ways. So, I think that sort of core understanding that great customer satisfaction and advocacy can lead to so much growth for the business. So I don't think I believe that you just build a great product and they will come. You need great marketing and great sales. But I think building that trust and reputation with customers is a deep insight that I had early, and I think that has been a big part of our success.
Right. And that hard connection to understand the business is to be curious, of course, too. So it's really interesting that you bring that curiosity to the customer experience, basically, is what you're saying, and understand their perspective of those moments that you can create. And that kind of leads right into implement strategies, which is the I in Build framework. But I'm interested just going down that chain, too, because you talked about those powerful moments, right, that can come up in different experiences. How do you then implement a strategy, right, that ensures that you create those moments that are memorable and those magic moments and those powerful moments from a customer experience standpoint or in your life in general?
Yeah, I think from a customer perspective, it's firstly a way to delight is to surprise.
Yes.
So I think if we look across the customer journey with us, there's a sort of natural journey as they become customers and they're onboarded and they start to use the software. Through those touch points and interactions, I think that there are the opportunities to sort of surprise and delight customers and go above and beyond, give them something maybe they weren't quite expecting.
Right.
I think that's one way that we've tried to think about influencing customers in that really positive way.
Right, great. And if you look at implement strategies, that category more broadly, what are some strategies that you've implemented in life that really has brought and sustained the success that you're at today?
I think that the company, of course, has grown from a small company of two guys almost in a garage.
Right. HP was that way.
Yeah.
Literally.
It was fun then.
Yes.
Fun in different ways now.
Right.
To, kind of 50 people where we were all in an office and, we could all wrap our arms around each other and take on the world. To sort of 500 people, many locations, different parts of the world. So I think the really core strategy that I've implemented is to think about how do we continue to sort of scale the company,
right,
and how we operate the company at scale. I think as the company's grown, you have to just keep evolving how the company operates and how you organize yourselves. And I think that also goes to myself as a leader. I feel like I've had to reinvent myself multiple times.
Yes.
I feel that many companies are maybe held back by, the founder or CEO, is sort of limiting their growth because they need to be in every decision. And so, I think that I've worked really hard to build the next batch of leaders and to, let go.
Yep.
And ensure that decisions can be made across the organization without me need to be in the room.
Right.
I've had my own personal coach. I think has been very helpful. I think that's helped me to not only think about working on the business and not in the business, but also above the business and become a more external CEO. So I think that it's a lot of self-work, I think, is probably what I've committed to, knowing that as the company grows, I need to keep investing in myself so that, I don't limit the company's potential.
Right. No, I love that because Build, as you know, is a personal and professional growth system from the heart, right? And it's so important to add that personal element into it because even though we talk a lot about different professional aspects here, if you don't work out the personal side, nothing else matters, right? Yeah. So it's great that you bring that up. And I'm interested too, just in the same category, implement strategies. What are some strategies personally? I mean, you said having a coach is one, that's great. What are some other, is it, exercise routine? Is it meditation? Are there other kind of strategies that you implement on a personal side that you can share that has kind of helped you maintain that leadership?
Yeah, I think
position in your life?
probably share a couple of things.
Yeah.
As well as my coach and my co-founder, I've just always tried to surround myself with great people.
Yeah.
I think that if you surround yourself with people who you look up to, or who are better with you, they'll draw you in that direction. So that's something I've always tried to do. Look, I think that time away from the business, I think, has been something that I found really, really important. So a couple of times a year, I'll literally just go away
and unplug,
and actually not only unplug, but just have time away just to think about where the business is at, how I'm going as a leader, self-reflect.
Right.
I do. I know sometimes it sounds corny, and when I first heard the concept, it sounded a bit corny. But journaling is something that I've done increasingly over the last few years. I don't know how it works, JP, but somehow, like, writing things down,
it gets it out there. I know exactly how it works.
You know how it works. Important. That's good. Maybe you can explain it to
we'll
me
talk
sometime.
about that. Yeah. But you don't have to know how. That's the beauty of it. It just works, right? It takes all that unconscious stuff and makes it conscious. It makes it tangible. It starts to manifest it into the physical reality, so that you can actually deal with it and reflect upon it, and actually shakes up things that are, within you that need to kind of come out, right? So as you probably have experienced, you just start kind of writing a simple thing. Sounds a little corny at first and sounds like forced, but then stuff starts to flow. And it's through that flow that you get and gain insight and inspiration, and you can get a perspective then, because now it's not just all in here in chaos, it's put out on paper, and you can start to look at it in a different way. So that's the 30-second version of how it works, but it's a very tangible thing.
Well, that really does strike me as what I felt. Often I can feel calmer and clearer and have better perspective after I've written things down. So I think I had an insight that you don't need to be continually doing, to actually have time away to think, write things down, self-reflect. That's probably the thing I would share that's been most helpful to me.
Right. We're human beings, not human doings, right?
Yeah. I like
being
that.
present in that.
Yeah, that's cool.
That leads to, no pun intended there, lead and inspire. We've talked a little bit about that now, but after implement strategies is lead and inspire, of course, in the build framework. So if you look at specifically that category of how you lead and inspire, you talked a little bit about it already with the strategies you implement, but if you look at the next level of leadership and inspiration and how you actually do that and maintain that in your life, personally and professionally, what comes to mind?
So I'm going to go to another book that I read outside of the build framework, and is, look, I read a book many years ago called Drive by Daniel Pink.
Yes.
And the book's really central thesis is really about what truly
motivation,
people.
Right? Yes, I know this book.
You know it? Yeah.
Yes.
And it had a profound impact on me. And I think that everything I read, I sort of knew intuitively, but really argues that what we think might naturally motivate people, monetary gain or financial incentives, or on the other side,
it's not the thing, right?
Punishments or penalties, the carrot and the stick.
Yes.
Right? These are like extrinsic factors. They can work for a while, but they don't really work for very long.
Right.
What truly motivates people, and number one that trumps everything, is this sense of autonomy. I think that's what my co-founder gave me, and there's two others which I can talk about. But I think autonomy, is that thing of giving people space, letting them be self-directive, make their own decisions. I've just seen time and time again, when you lead in that way, people who I think are firstly talented and ambitious. You need to find great people, but when you give them that, they'll just do extraordinary things that you didn't think were possible.
Right.
So I'm a huge believer in that. I think then you have to sort of balance that with the right set of accountability, and guardrails. But I think when you can get that right, it's very magical. So I think if you're sort of, what's the term they often use, micromanaging,
right?
I encourage people, always leaders, to sort of try to think about that and stand back and give people more space. And I think when people have that space, they feel a greater sense of ownership of whatever they're engaged in. And when you feel like you own, and you might even feel like an owner of the business, right? Like a shareholder in the business. Again, I think that, the discretionary effort and what people are capable of doing, it can be extraordinary. So yeah, I think that's really my core philosophy around leadership is giving people autonomy.
I love that. Now, you teased it out, so everyone's going to send in messages. So I'll just ask you now, what are the other two things?
Okay. The other two things, number one, the second one is mastery.
Right.
So that's really about the urge that people have to get better at things. I think that's about creating an environment where people can learn and grow. And the last one is purpose.
Right.
Is how do people find the importance of finding meaning in the work, connecting the work to the mission of the organization. The things that you talk about, JP, about having an organization or leading with an open heart, I think that really, I think that's connected a lot to purpose.
Yes.
That sense that the work that you are doing has meaning, has a positive impact. If you can build an organization that shines a light on the purpose of the work that people are doing, I think that's another huge factor in outsized motivation.
There you go. Well, it's called, just came to me now, but it's right in front of us, AMP it up, right? AMP, autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Oh, wow.
You just amp it up.
That's so cool.
We did that here right now today. You just did. I just put acronyms around things. That's what I do. But you can remember that, right? If you want to amp up your leadership, then
I love that.
Lead with autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, and you'll hear it here from both of us as we move forward. So let's move on to deliver excellence. Okay, so that's where it all comes together in the heart. It's what the Build framework is all about. What is deliver excellence even mean to you? I mean, what is excellence about, and how do you ensure that you deliver that each and every day?
Yeah, that's a great question, JP. I think it's delivering excellence to me is about, I think I said earlier, ensuring that you bring out the best in everyone around you. Everyone's operating at the best. For me, it's about inspiring people in the company to do the best work of their lives, helping the company reach its potential, having as much impact as we can in a positive way.
Yeah.
I think that, when all of that comes together, and, I like to lead a lot, you talk about heart, and I like to lead with gut and intuition. And if it feels right, it feels that you have momentum, you're having positive impact, people feel connected to the work, customers are very, very engaged and can be religious about your company.
Yes.
When all that comes together, that for me is excellence. It's a really interesting thought to reflect on, I think.
Yeah, and that's true too, because the gut, I mean, we even have these sayings, right? You have a gut feel about something, I mean, there's the microbiome. I mean, don't get me started on the intelligence is in the body, right? And when we talk about heart in the Build framework too, and everyone knows this who has really dove in deep into this, is to look at going from thinking and analyzing your life to feeling and experiencing, right? So when we say going from the head to the heart, that's what we mean. We mean to go to feeling. So going to the heart actually means trusting the gut as well, right? Because it's about really tapping into feeling versus thinking. Not that you don't have to think and that thinking isn't helpful, right? But when you really actually have the center of gravity in the heart, in feeling, in trusting your intuition, your gut, everything that you're feeling, the emotional IQ, right? That you have the EQ and the IQ together, it's a game changer. And when you lead with that changes everything, because then you go to the head to think and analyze things, but from the center and foundation of the heart, which is feeling. So, that really echoes everything you're saying about excellence and everything else about the Build framework. And also, if you look at excellence in the professional environment, which you just did, if you kind of take that and put it on the personal environment, what would you say excellence looks like to you in the personal realm? And how do you achieve and maintain that personally?
I think in terms of my family life, I think it's actually quite similar, right? How do I bring the best out in everyone around me? I think I try to be, in any situation, as engaged as possible in the moment. I think if you can, be in the moment and don't try time travel too much,
right?
Thinking too much backwards or thinking too much forwards. I think that can be really, really helpful in terms of relationships with family and friends. Look, my family is very important to me. My weekends are really sacred. I try to be super engaged, try to put the phone down. I'm far from perfect. We're all grappling with this stuff, right? Work-life balance. If it doesn't go quite right in terms of getting that balance right, I think it's important not to beat yourself up and just reset and try again, because we're all grappling with it, right?
We are. And it's so important to be present, right? And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
To not be in, as you said, the memory or the imagination, which
Right.
is the past or the future, right? It's to have the awareness of being right here, right now, whether that's personally and or professionally.
Yeah.
Because without that, you miss your life,
Mm.
right? Well, thanks so much for walking through that. What are some other things that have come to mind as we've walked through that, maybe that we didn't touch on, that you wanted to share here today, if anything?
I think another philosophy I'd just share, which I think really is just an extension of everything we've talked about, is something I often ask myself and reflect on is what got me here won't get me there.
Right.
You know, is to try to always stay open. And I think it's okay to say I don't know, and just trying to keep learning, stay very, very curious. In fact, I think I've found as I've grown a business, the more the business has grown, the more I've realized the less I actually know.
Exactly. Right.
And I think too, part of that staying curious is then trying to get yourself into positions where you're a little uncomfortable. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when you sort of swim out in the ocean and you go a little bit too far out,
Yep.
and you get that sort of sense that maybe this is a bit deep or I've gone too far here. I think that's a good thing when you're in business and life, you know.
To be clear, you're not saying to go into the ocean and swim out too far without safety. I like it. Yeah.
I appreciate the public health warning.
That's right. Exactly.
That you're able to place
just
over
a disclaimer for you. I'm just protecting you.
So it's more about the vibe than the actual.
But that risk and that going beyond your comfort zone, basically, and really going into that unknown where you're not. We gravitate so much. You're right, towards that comfortable, right, and everything's okay. So we just kind of don't push ourselves to that next extreme and that next leverage point that can tip us to that next, success level. So important.
Don't play it safe.
Right. I love that. What if people want to get a hold of you or learn more about ReadyTech? What's the best way to do that?
Oh yeah, thanks, JP. Well, first of all, I have a podcast.
Great.
Where we explore topics around technology and the intersections of tech and humans and education and skills and work, which is called the Ready Podcast, and our website is readytech.io.
Great.
I'd love anyone to reach out and hit me on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Well, we'll put all those links up with the beauty of technology on this podcast, and we look forward to learning more about all the wonderful things that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, JP. I really enjoyed it.
Thank all of you for joining us here as well. For more great resources to help you become your best self, including free worksheets and downloads, make sure to check out thebuildframework.com. That's it for this episode. I'm JP. We'll see you next time on The Build Show.